This series contains themes of violence against women and child abuse. Listener discretion is advised. More than 40 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared from the beachside suburbs of southern Sydney. Elaine Johnson was 16, Kerry Anne Joel was 17. Gone without a trace, never to be heard from again. For more than 4 decades, Elaine's family have searched in vain for answers. This is their story.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. Islands can be big and small. My love for you will never go away.
Helen heard the girl's voice before she saw her. It was March 1980, and Elaine's younger sister was hanging out with friends at a local park near Cronulla train station. Weeks had passed since 12-year-old Helen had last seen Elaine. Growing up, they'd been close, a sister's bond, listening to music, hanging at the beach, riding bikes and giggling at the humour of British comedy troupe Monty Python. Some nights when Elaine was still living at home, she'd wait for her parents to go to bed before waking Helen up to sit together and watch the sketch show on TV. Elaine hadn't done that for months, because she hadn't been home since January 1980, 2 months earlier.
It was probably about February when we found, they started talking about the car crash and that. Then we put 2 and 2 together. Kerry's gone, Elaine's gone.
That's Helen. Back then, she didn't realise Elaine was missing, but word was slowly filtering around Elaine and Kerry's friends group that something wasn't right. People were asking questions, and for some, emotions were running high. That day in Cronulla, Helen was bailed up by one of the girls' friends.
She pulled me up at the train station and said she was going to bash my head in if I didn't tell her where the girls were. She was just wanting to find out. That was, just sometime after, so it might have been March or something.
Helen wasn't fazed by the confrontation. She was a tough, wily kid. But she also didn't have an answer.
I was a bit blasé back then, so I just go, if I knew where she was, I would tell you, wouldn't I? I have no clue what's happened. And then she sort of took off.
Helen and the friend have spoken many times over the years since then. Helen understands the anguish the friend felt that day, what the uncertainty can do to you. She's felt her share of it over the years. Helen is Elaine's sister. She's never met Kerry. Never met her, but she knows, better than most, what Kerry's family have been through. It was Helen who urged me to include Kerry's story in this podcast. She didn't want her sister's friend to be forgotten. That's the kind of person Helen is. I've reached out to Kerry's family. I've been told her mother Judith and her younger brother are aware of the podcast, but at this stage they don't want to be involved. Kerry's older brother Gary was open to an interview when I reached out to him over email. Here's what he said. I'm happy to help out in any way I can, but I did not live with them when Kerry and Elaine went missing. Wish you luck with the podcast and hope it turns up some new information. Gary. But after following him up, I haven't heard back. As for Kerry's father Robert, better known as Bob, he was unavailable for an interview, but his written words have been shared with his family's permission. Like Elaine, Kerry wasn't from the Shire. She grew up in Kingsgrove, a suburb in southern Sydney, about a 30-minute drive to Cronulla. In the late 1960s, Kerry's parents' marriage broke down and they divorced. Kerry stayed with her mum and brothers, but continued to spend time with her father. After a while, her parents found new relationships and remarried. Her mother Judith moved from Kingsgrove with the 3 children and her new husband to Wiseman's Ferry, a township on the northern outskirts of Sydney. Bob and his new wife Barbara moved about an hour's drive away to Baulkham Hills, a suburb in Sydney's Greater Hills district. They welcomed 2 boys together. Bob saw his older children regularly.
I would drive to Wiseman's Ferry most Friday afternoons and pick up the 3 children and bring them back to our home at Baulkham Hills.
These are Bob's words, but not his voice.
On Sunday afternoons, I would return the children to Judy. Sometimes during the school holidays, the 3 children would come and stay for the whole holidays.
When Kerry was about 15, She moved house with her mother and younger brother to Caringbah, a suburb in the Shire. Her older brother went to live with her father. It was around this time Kerry also left school and got a job working the register at Half K Supermarket in Tarrant Point. Bob still saw Kerry on weekends, but as she got older, it became less frequent.
I continued to have Kerry and at my house on weekends. I would drive to Caringbah, pick them up and drop them home on Sunday. They were coming over about every 4 weeks. It was more when they wanted to come over and stay. As they were getting old, they preferred to stay at home and go out with their friends.
I've been told as a teenager, Kerry pretty much did as she pleased, whenever she pleased. She wasn't alone in this.
We were terrors as kids, truly.
That's Angela. You heard from her in a previous episode. She grew up in Caringbah, not far from Kerry's place. They became friends after meeting at local hangouts.
But it was there was so many of us didn't like it. I mean, we got away with a lot of things that our kids don't even think of doing because we weren't able to drive at that age. We'd hitchhike everywhere. Yeah. And it was just a done thing. But all us kids knew each other because we weren't sitting at home on computer games. We were out. If we stayed home, we were doing chores. So as soon as we could, we'd get out of the house. We wouldn't go back till it was dark.
Then there's Annie. She knew Kerry the best, that she had a dappled grey mare called Cloudy, her favourite chocolate is Cadbury's hazelnut, and that her favourite scent is musk.
The grief never stops. Kerry was my best friend, as you know, and Elaine, I knew too. But my path took me in a different direction, not that I wasn't still best friends with Kerry.
They also met at high school, and from day one, they were as thick as thieves.
I moved to Woolaware High in Year 8, and the two of us just clung together. We actually had a reunion, and one of the girls said to me, I was given as your mentor when you started the school, and she said, me and you and Kerry got together, and she said, oh my goodness, what I'm going to do now. She said, but I mean, we laugh all these years ago, but she just thought, oh my God, this is out of my hands. We were rebellious. As you know, we ran away quite often, and back then.
Listening to Annie talk, it sounds like she and Kerry bolted every chance they got. Sometimes they were away from home for a couple of days. Sometimes it was a couple of weeks. They'd sleep rough in a local park or down at the beach. They'd even bunker down at a local furniture store that had been condemned. Annie said life was tough at home for Kerry. Teenagehood and parental authority didn't mix.
I rebelled, and I blamed it on my mother. Quite a few years ago now, I realised that it wasn't her. She was raising 3 children, working 3 jobs, and I've apologised to her constantly. She said no one should have to live through what Kerry and I put her through.
Another of Kerry and Annie's regular spots was a motocross track on the New South Wales Central Coast, a 2-hour drive north of the Shire. They'd either catch a lift up with friends or get the train up to Gosford and then hitch the final stretch.
We're up there often. We're probably up there more than what we were at home. It was our safe space.
Here's Annie again.
Sometimes we'd sleep on trains when they used to park them up in the big shelters. But one night we were on our way up and we went on the train. Yeah. And we got to Gosford Station and it stopped. No more trains. None to a while. So the guard rung a priest. And the priest came and picked us up and put us in a motel at Long Jetty. And then we were so fearful that the police were going to come, so we got up really, really in the morning and then hitchhiked our way back out to Jillaby Park.
From what I've been told, the Jillaby Motocross Park played a big part in Kerry's life. But more about that later. Bob remembers first hearing about Kerry hitchhiking after bumping into his daughter one day at the motocross track with Gary.
Sometime after Judy and the two children moved from Wiseman's Ferry to Caringbah, which would have been in the late 70s, I saw Kerry at a motocross track at Jillaby. Jillaby is in the Wyong area. We were surprised to see her there, and she told us that she got a lift from Sydney with the old guy who either ran or owned the motocross track. We warned her about the dangers of getting lifts with people. This was the first time we knew of her getting lifts with people she didn't know. I don't know how she came to get the lift with this fellow.
The old guy Bob's talking about was Glenn Smith. Glenn ran the track with his wife, whose name was also Elaine Smith. It wasn't just Annie and Kerry. Elaine Johnson also spent time there with Kerry and her friends. Annie wasn't with Kerry in the days before she went missing. It's something that still crushes her to this day. But it wasn't by choice. A few months before Kerry and Elaine disappeared, Annie found out she was pregnant. Faced with motherhood, she cut back on her partying. She saw less of Kerry and never stayed at the Jillaby motocross park again. Sadly, Glenn Smith died in September 1989, so I couldn't ask him if he had seen Kerry and Elaine in February or March 1980. But Annie did. She stopped by the Smiths' property on an unplanned visit in 1981.
Mum and I were coming home from up north and there was no freeway in back then, so we had to go through Wyong. So we went to Wyong police station and there was a really elderly police officer there, and I said, "Do you know Glenn and Elaine Smith?" And he said, "Yes, of course I do." And I said, "Are they still out at the motorbike track?" And he said, "Yes, they are." So Mum and I went out there and met up with Glenn and Elaine, and they were just so happy, and yes.
Annie says the Smiths still remembered her.
Of course they did, because it had only been I fell pregnant in 1980. I would have been a couple of months when Kerry went missing, but I'd stopped doing all the naughty things, stopped hitchhiking, and just looked after my pregnancy. We took drugs. We drank a lot of alcohol back in those days. So I knew that I had to take care of my pregnancy. But when we saw Elaine and Glenn up at Jillaby Park, and of course I said, "Have you seen Kerry?" And they said, No, haven't seen her.
Bob searched solidly for Kerry for close to a year, with no sign of her. He took his role as a father seriously and was loving and caring with Kerry and all his boys. As they got older, he continued to support them emotionally and financially as best he could. In about 1998, Barbara contacted the Police Missing Persons Unit for information about Kerry's case. Bob said the phone call was concerning.
Barbara was informed that my details were not included in the missing persons records. We were also informed that Kerry was reported missing in 1981.
I've seen a document from the Police Missing Persons Unit which shows that Kerry's official report was filed in their system on February 1981. This doesn't make any sense, since she was reported missing in 1980. One possibility is that police initially considered Kerry a runaway, who would return after a few days, healthy and well, a teenager whose short-lived disappearance wasn't worth the effort of the paperwork. That's what Elaine's family believed happened in her case, so they wouldn't be surprised if Kerry, too, got the same treatment from authorities. Helen clearly remembers what her father told her after he reported Elaine missing to police in 1980.
He just said they treated Elaine as a runaway, and he was really cranky when he came back because they wouldn't listen to him. And he supposedly went back there again, but then they did nothing. They just said they're runaways, they can do what they like virtually.
The official police investigations into Elaine and Kerry's disappearances will be the subject of a future episode. But for now, I want to talk about procedure, about what should happen when someone is reported missing to the police, what should have happened here 45 years ago.
As a detective, you come across missing persons cases quite regularly. They're normally dealt with at triage, I suppose might be the term to use.
That's Duncan McNabb. He's a former New South Wales police detective turned successful crime author He worked in the Cross in the 1970s and 1980s.
They're normally dealt with up front by uniformed police. Then if there's a suspicion that it's more than just a missing person, that there is some degree of foul play, then you may get the detectives involved.
Jeff Dakers was once one of those uniformed police officers whose job included following up on missing persons reports. He's retired, but he's had his fair share of cases like this.
Police normally wait 24 hours to see if they just come home or whatever. When you go to the police station, you have the guy who's working the front counter, and you usually have a couple of car crews going out and doing all the different jobs.
In the late 1970s, Jeff was a New South Wales police constable stationed in the coastal city of Wollongong, about an hour's drive south from Cronulla. He was one of the first officers on duty when reports came in about the disappearances of Kay Doherty and Tony Kavanagh, two teenage girls who went missing from outside Wollongong in July 1979.
So we were assigned to go and try and track down where Tony and Kay were. So we had to go find out, get a list of their friends and just unpack the stories and investigate all the information.
This included asking certain questions.
When were they last seen? Where were they heading? What time were they expected to return? Is there anybody else with them? Does anybody else know anything? So you spend a whole night running around talking to people, trying to get the story of what's actually rolled out. You've got to go from one friend to another friend to another friend. Then you've got to go back to the family of what they knew. And as it turns out, you know, with kids being kids, sometimes even the parents don't get the full story.
Once Jeff and his partner collected what they believed was enough information from family and friends, it was his job to pass the details up the chain.
Well, the whole thing is we collate all our information and we hand it over to detectives. They say, well, there's something wrong here. You guys need to run with it from here.
Earlier, you heard about Kerry being in a relationship at the time she disappeared. She was supposedly dating a 17-year-old boy named Robert. He lived with his family in Cronulla, the same suburb where Elaine and the Johnson family lived, in late 1979 and early 1980. Angela remembers the two would hitchhike into Cronulla together.
He used to always hitchhike with Elaine to come in because it was like, you know, the bus has stopped. Once it's stopped, you can't get home.
As you heard in episode 1, Robert spent time at Woronora Caravan Park. Woronora Caravan Park was one of the local camping grounds Helen and Wendy said they visited while searching for the girls. Robert died in 1999. I couldn't ask him about any of this. Sadly, Annie, Kerry's best friend, doesn't remember the last time she saw Kerry.
The last time I saw her, I was meant to meet her at Cronulla Station. She was having a medical procedure and she didn't meet me. So, like, the police, I thought, oh, she's come up to Jillaby Park or somewhere like that.
Let's take a moment here. What if after Kerry damaged her mother's car and returned it, she left the Shire? And what if Elaine decided to go with her? Could the girls have stopped off somewhere between Kerry's house in Caringbah and the pinball arcade in Cronulla? If they did make a stop, did they speak with anyone and tell them where they were going? Did someone give them some cash to help them lay low?
There was a rumour that they went to the Woronora Caravan Park, but I think they would have taken off a bit further than that.
Here's Angela again.
Where did they get the money to stay there? Because they didn't use their bank accounts. I know they used to go motorbike riding up Central Coast somewhere, so I'd say they'd hitch and go to somebody's place or get on the train and go, like, hitch into town and go do something like that, because the train stopped at like 12 o'clock or 11:30 from Caringbah.
Like Angela, Helen wonders where Elaine got the money for any potential movements. She had a casual job at a local fruit market, but Helen doesn't know how much she saved. She was also told Elaine may have been getting Centrelink, government support payments.
Dad said that he'd taken her to get Centrelink, and I thought it couldn't have been true. Because the police have done the research, but this is a long time later, 30-something years later, and said that she's never been on Centrelink, nothing.
Looking into whether that's true or not has been strange. On the one hand, Helen has seen documents from New South Wales Police claiming Elaine wasn't on Centrelink, a source of income that theoretically could have given her and Kerry some money to live on after they were last seen. On the other hand, it's not just Helen's father who was sure she was receiving those payments.
One day I was speaking to a lady, a girl from back there that knew Elaine, and she said, one thing I remember about Elaine, Helen, is I went to the boys' home and Elaine was really excited this day. And I said, oh, what was she excited about? And she goes, she got her first Centrelink check. And I said, what? And when she said it, I'd never mentioned anything to her about any of this. And I said, say that again. And she said she got her first Centrelink check. And I said, are you sure? She goes, yeah, I'm damn right, I'm sure. She goes, she was jumping up and down, she got this Centrelink check. And Dad had always said to me, he took her, got her Centrelink. The police said she's never been on Centrelink.
I've spoken with the woman Helen mentions here. She confirmed she did see Elaine at the Red Cross Boys' Home in Cronulla. At that time, Elaine's mother worked at the home as a cook, and Elaine had come in waving her cheque around. I contacted the Australian Department of Social Services regarding Centrelink payments in the early 1970s and early 1980s. I specifically asked whether a parent could sign up a teenager to Centrelink payments during this period, if the teenager was 15 or 16. I'm yet to hear back. After all these years, Angela is still uneasy about how the girls just seemed to disappear.
Everything just went silent. Have you heard from Kerry? Have you heard from Elaine? Like, no one heard from them after that at all. Nobody. I mean, surely they would have rang somebody. Just one person. And, like, the amount of people we hung around with, there would have been somebody that got a phone call eventually.
Like the girls' friends, Elaine's sisters only have rumours to go on about the girls' whereabouts after the car crash.
We heard about the car accident, that Kerry and Elaine had crashed the car into a green box. That's what we heard first.
Here's Elaine's sister, Wendy.
So I don't know what they actually did crash the car into, but we were told it was one of the green electrical boxes, the big green ones on the road. And we heard that they freaked out and took the car back to Kerry Joel's mum's place and just left it there. And then supposedly they were going to hitchhike up to Gosford. But then we got told they went back to Cronulla Flashes, so I'm not sure.
A smashed car. 2 missing teenage girls who might or might not have visited a pinball arcade before leaving home to bunker down at a caravan park or head further up north. These were some of the rumours at the time Elaine and Kerry disappeared. Then, another stranger was thrown into the mix.
2 weeks before Kerry ran away, she came to our place with her boyfriend Robert for a visit for the day. They were both in good spirits.
Here's Kerry's father, Bob. Just a reminder, this is not his voice.
Kerry was wearing new jeans. Barbara has since told me that Kerry told her that an older man had bought her jeans. I don't know who this man is.
Next week, on Out from the Cold, searching for Elaine.
He brought the man out to the car. I was in the car petrified. I thought he was showing me to this guy. I can't be sure, but it sounded like the man said no.
Searching for Elaine is a series from Out from the Cold, part of Happy Tuesday Productions. A special thanks to Helen and Wendy and the extended Johnson Cooper family for their time and trust. Thanks also to the Joel family, Elaine and Kerry's friends, and anyone who helped with information about the girls. It all counts. If you have information about Elaine Johnson or Kerry Anne Joel, you can get in touch at Help Find Elaine Johnson on social media or contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. This episode was produced by me, Kate Kachor, and Sally Spicer. Editing by Dan McHugh and Matt Haywood. Artwork by Nic Watts.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. Islands can be big and small. My love for you will never go away. My love for you will never go away.